isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
The NBA's Eastern Conference is definitely chaotic. Can the Hornets climb the ladder? That's the question. What's up and welcome to the Sam Dracula channel, a Charlotte Hornets fan channel. And today, as I'm recording this, on a Sunday afternoon, the Charlotte Hornets are 3-3, 508th in the Eastern Conference. It's looking pretty good, man. No LaMelo, no Cody, no Terry. All things considered, we're sitting pretty. It's not, the Orlando thing was a bit of a setback. I'll talk about that later in this video. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. I do Hornets live streams. I do Hornets videos. I do a podcast with Raymond Felton. Link in the description. Believe in Hornets, available everywhere podcasts are found. And since my last video, last weekend, the Hornets have gone from 2-1 to 3-3. Nick Richards, he's still in the running for the prince that was promised. Dennis Smith, second of his name, looks to be a real contender for most improved player. And of course, we're still waiting on the Lord of Light to bring back LaMelo, Cody, and Terry. But that may or may not be the last of the Game of Thrones references this episode. So stay tuned to find out. Also, shout out to MJ Hornet on Reddit. Man, I didn't expect to see someone post one of my videos over there. That threw me for a loop. Like, it was really cool to see. So I appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for doing that. It means the world to me, honestly. Like, that was really dope. So like I mentioned, since my last video, the Hornets have gone from 2-1 to 3-3. Right? We've played the Knicks, the Magic, and the Warriors with varying results in those games. All right, so let's start in the past and work our way to the present. Hornets lose in overtime to the Knicks on October 26th. This game was one of those games where it's a loss, but you can see a lot of positives in it, right? This Hornets team, you're seeing what this team is made of on both ends. Like, the effort they're putting in defensively and offensively has been really good to see this year. This game obviously didn't go our way. Overtime loss, been there before, done that before. Hornets had an opportunity to rectify it later, which we'll talk about, and again, like, this is one of those losses that doesn't stick with you, like the Magic one. Like, that one really stings. This one sucked, but it doesn't hit the same as that Orlando one. You know what I mean? We'll get to that in a second, though. We'll get into that in a second. The Hornets had a fight. We're up 5 with like 2 minutes left. Had a breakdown. Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, just too much for the Hornets to handle. Forced overtime. And Knicks pulled away. Got it done at home. So respect to them. Big time W. Jalen Brunson is a dog, man. He's worth every penny. Salute to, if you're a Knicks fan watching this somehow, like, you did it. You guys did it. You guys got a point guard finally. You guys did it, man. But I'm not gonna dwell too much on that game. This game, I'm gonna spend some time on, right? Hornets go to Orlando. 2 nights later, 2 nights after the overtime loss to the Knicks, the Hornets travel to Orlando and get bodied by the Magic. A Magic team that was winless on the year and got pumped out, like absolutely outclassed in Orlando. And it was tough. It was the first time this season where I really disliked watching this team play. It was really frustrating. Guys weren't aggressive. Guys weren't hitting shots. Guys weren't rotating. Like, it was bad, man. Bad stuff. Magic deserve it. Paolo Banchero is insane. To be 19, that big, and bullying Mason Plumlee like that is jokes. Orlando, you've done it. You guys done it again. You've done it again. It's wild too, because going into the Orlando game, the Hornets were the best team offensively in points per game. They were second best in field goal percentage. The best team in 3-point percentage going into that game. After it, not even in the top 5. Like, just gone. Just deleted after that game. And for good reason. You can look at the schedule and you can see this game had all the makings of a prototypical trap game. First night of a back-to-back, hosting the Golden State Warriors after this one, right? So Orlando on a Friday night, Charlotte against the Warriors on a Saturday night. Had the makings of a trap game, and the Orlando Magic stepped up. The Hornets didn't. And the Hornets got embarrassed. Thankfully, the season didn't end Friday night. The games continued on, you know what I mean? Saturday night, last night, as I'm recording this, Golden State 113, Charlotte 120 in overtime, handling their business against the defending champs. This felt good. This was a big game for Charlotte, a big game for these players coming off of what happened the night before. and against a real team, like a real test, a real team. I know it only counts as one win, but it kind of feels like three, right? Beating the Warriors feels like a win just on its own. Making up for the Orlando loss and embarrassment, that feels like a win. And then winning in overtime for the first time after going winless last year in overtime, it feels like another win. It feels like 3 wins wrapped up in one. So there's some good momentum, hopefully, beginning here for this franchise. And then when these guys start coming back healthy, maybe this team can do something nice in the Eastern Conference. We'll see, though. We'll see. Long way to go. A long way to go. So I mentioned how Nick Richards could still be the prince that was promised. You know, the center we've been waiting for. A long way to go on him as well. But I just want to talk about the centers in general. Richards, Plumlee, and Williams. Quick story time for the folks who didn't watch last night's game. The Hornets are up 5 points with 6:06 left in the fourth quarter. Mason Plumlee subbed into the game along with Gordon Hayward and PJ Washington, right, to close this thing out. They're going to have the starters close the game out, right? Makes sense. No, I have no beef with that. I have no beef with it, right? The issue is the Warriors start fouling Plumlee. So Hornets up 5. Hornets are winning by 5 points. Plumlee goes to the line for the first time of the night. He hadn't shot a free throw up until that point. So his first trip to the line, he goes 1 for 2. Clay hits a jumper on the other end. Hornets up 4. Next Hornets possession, Plumlee fouled. He goes to the line, 1 for 2 again. Draymond scores on the other end. Hornets up 3. Plumlee fouled again, misses both, and he subbed out with 4:56 remaining. 3-point game. Mason Plumlee's free throws were a major liability last night. He lasted a little over a minute out there in the fourth quarter in a close game. And he could only be out there for a little over a minute. Clifford responded by going small, right? Plumlee came out, Jalen McDaniels came in, and the Warriors started spamming backdoor cuts, man. They kept running the same play, basically. Driving to the rim, Draymond getting busy. They end up taking the lead, and Dennis Smith Jr., to his credit, hits a game-tying layup to force overtime, and Clifford runs with a small ball team. They run with a small ball lineup throughout the overtime period, and it worked. They got it done. Steph, after the game, mentioned he was guilty of falling into the hero ball trap. You know, he wanted to show off in Charlotte, and it didn't work. The Hornets played very well in overtime. They stayed focused in that small ball lineup, which you can kind of get away with against the Warriors, even though, you know, they got carved up on the defensive end and made up for it on the other end, honestly, and they won the game. So it worked. Clifford went toe-to-toe with Steve Kerr last night and came up the victor. Kenny Atkinson in the mud. This group right here: Dennis Smith Jr., Kelly Oubre, Gordon Hayward, Jalen McDaniels, PJ Washington. Clifford likes these guys, man. We're seeing small glimpses of like where Clifford's preferences are with this team, given who's available and who isn't available, right? So Smith, Oubre, Hayward, McDaniels, and PJ, they closed out the game against the Knicks in overtime, and we saw them close out the game against the Warriors last night. So while Terry, LaMelo, Cody Martin are on the shelf, I expect this to be our closeout lineup. So Mason Plumlee has played kind of as expected this season. We know what Mason Plumlee is, right? He's 32 years old. He's on the last year of his contract here in Charlotte. He's not the future of this team. And the question is, who is? We got Nick Richards. We got, I almost called him Marvin Williams. We got Mark Williams in the mix. And it's pretty clear that Mark isn't ready. Or at least this grouping of Mason and Nick versus the potential group of Nick and Mark is not on the same level. These are not one-to-one pairings, like center rotations. And we're not seeing a 3-man center group. Like, that's not happening. So Mason and Nick, this grouping, if you want to flip him at some point, fair play, like whatever, but Williams is not good enough to get Mason out of here. At least not yet. So we're just all going to have to be patient with it, like really patient with it. This is Nick Richards so far this year, and he's about 20 minutes a night, a big time improvement over last year. And I feel comfortable with him. If he had to start, I'd feel good with it. I'd feel confident in him getting more minutes. if this was the case last year, if you told me this last year, I don't know if I'd believe you. But we're here, and he's improved a ton from last year to this year, especially from year 1 to now to year 3, which is obviously the goal. He knows what he needs to be doing out there, and he does it well. He's an excellent role player for this team who does the dirty work, rebounding, dunks, might dabble with the jump shot here and there. And he offers something defensively. You know, he's not a stopper by any means, but he brings some resistance at the rim, which is sorely needed because this team sucks at defending the paint. Like, it's actually terrible. The worst in the league at defending the paint. 58.3 points in the paint per game against the Hornets. That's awful, man. That's terrible. We got to fix that. One last thing on Nick Richards. This guy went toe-to-toe with James Wiseman. Second pick versus second round pick. Nick Richards looks like the much better player than James Wiseman, which is nuts. Who knows? In 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, Wiseman can click and he'll be, hell, even this season, Wiseman can get it together. Like, Wiseman's a big talent. But right now, Nick Richards is better than James Wiseman, and that's nuts. So salute to Nick. Next up, I want to talk about Dennis Smith Jr. This guy's not even supposed to be here right now, man. Like, he was going to try out for the NFL. You know, he's not even supposed to be playing this much, let alone be here. This dude was brought in late, like right before the start of preseason, right? On a non-guaranteed deal, a flyer, a low risk investment. And it's paid off in a big way, right away, right? We knew LaMelo wasn't going to start the year. Terry Rozier gets the call. He's the point guard. Terry Rozier, the backup point guard, with LaMelo out. Oubre slides to the 2. We get 2 games out of that group. Boom, Terry's out. Dennis Smith getting the call to start against Atlanta. His first game as a starter. Like, he looks like he's been here the whole time, man. Dennis Smith Jr., he brings so much defensively. So much. I mentioned, like, it's hilarious that he was going to try out to be a defensive back in the NFL because he looks like a cornerback right here in Charlotte wearing a Hornets jersey. Sticking with the backcourt for a second, Teo Maledon is way overqualified to be a two-way contract guy. This is what Raymond Felton, my podcast co-host, had to say about Teo.
Listen, I saw him in OKC. He can play. So when I heard he was on a two-way, I'm like, oh, wow, two-way, okay, yeah. That's a steal. No, for real. I saw him play in OKC. He can play. He can go. You know, he got a little taste of that last night of what he can actually do. So, you know, Charlotte got some guards. They got some guards.
The last player I really want to mention is Jalen McDaniels. This guy, you know how like the Heat have heat culture? Like the Hornets have this, like the second round draft pick, the undrafted guy going through the developmental system. Like we have our own version of that here in Charlotte, and Jalen McDaniels and Cody Martin are carrying the flag for this franchise. And it's only Jalen right now because Cody really hasn't played this year. Jalen's bringing 10.5 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists off the bench, 46 from the floor, 57.9 from 3. Are you kidding me? It's that smart role player mentality that I think Clifford is digging with Jalen McDaniels. And like I mentioned before, Jalen found his way into these closeout lineups that I'm really digging. But yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to Jalen McDaniels because I've been really impressed by him. I'm glad that he's still in the mix because he was one of Borrego's guys. And the question is when you have like a change in leadership, and how's that affect the players? And Jalen McDaniels seemed to be on a track to be a really solid bench guy, like a rotation dude who can be a 6th, 7th, 8th man, like on a really nice team. And we're seeing it. Also real quick shout out to PJ and Gordon for stepping up the intensity from the Magic game to the Golden State game. Those guys really turned it up a notch. Really love to see it and I hope it continues. Please keep it up. Please keep it up, fellas. Hornets need it. Hornets need y'all with their boys still out. Also real quick, Kelly Oubre stopped talking to the referees. He got a technical while sitting on the bench. You can't have that. We can't have that. At one point he was like talking to the ref instead of defending Klay Thompson. Definitely can't have that. Kelly, allow it. Just relax with it. Just relax. I know the refs aren't the best at all times. Nick Richards got a tech as well. Just leave it. Just leave it, man. Especially in these close games. You got to leave it. Just leave it. Just move on. But anyway. That's it. That's it. I've been Sam. You've been great. I'll see you next time. Peace.